One of my favorite things to do to save money, to pinch pennies, is to make my own homemade seasonings. Now, when you go out and you buy these little packets of seasoning, they're convenient, I get that. But if you ever flipped them over and read the ingredients, they're full of stuff you can't even pronounce. Usually MSG, or it might say monoglycide, something like that. MSG is what it is. Not good for you. Doesn't need to be in your body. There's all sorts of other preservatives and fillers that they use. So it's so easy to make your own. So today we're going to make homemade ranch seasoning. From this seasoning mix, you can make your own salad dressings or substitute it in any recipe that calls for ranch seasoning. So pretty simple. Let me show you how it's done. Okay, the main ingredient is dry buttermilk. I buy this particular brand, cultured buttermilk blend. Mine was a little bit chunky, and so I took a sifter and sifted it, but I'm going to use 2 cups, which is about what was in this container. This does not save very well. It gets moisture in it and dries out, so I have found it's better just to use the whole container. So basically, I'm going to take my recipe and I'm going to multiply it 4 times or quadruple the recipe. So I'm going to be using 2 cups of buttermilk powder. I'm going to be using some dried chives, which I don't have, so I'm going to substitute a little bit of dried, some minced onions in there. Probably going to go back and pick up some chives sometime and add to this. But I'm going to be using 4 tablespoons of onion powder, just any kind of onion powder. Just mix that right in. I'm going to be using 6 teaspoons of garlic powder. Love good garlic powder. And I'm using an organic one. And then it calls for a teaspoon of salt. So since I'm quadrupling, I'm going to use 4 teaspoons. And I use the real salt or pink Himalayan salt, and then just regular pepper. So it calls for 4 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of black pepper. Then I'm going to use 8 tablespoons of dried parsley. I'm going to use a teaspoon times 4 or 4 teaspoons of dill weed. And that's all that you have to do for this recipe. And then you can just take a fork or a whisk, and we're just going to stir it together. And as you can see, that looks like the buttermilk packages that you get without all of the horrible ingredients. You are in control of what's in here. It tastes very good. And because it does have dry ingredients, I want to store it in something airtight. So what I have found works best for me is to use a mason jar. And I store this airtight and pull out how much I need when it's time for some ranch mix. When a recipe calls for a packet of the ranch seasoning mix, you're going to use 2 tablespoons of this. So it goes a very long way, but you are in control of what's in there. None of the bad ingredients like MSG and other preservatives that it uses just as fillers. So perfect recipe. So there we have it, a jar of ranch seasoning mix, and this literally can stay in your cabinet I've used it for months later, and so much better than that nasty kind that you buy in the store. Great way to pinch pennies.